13.35 miles, 8 minutes, 3 seconds per mile in my first run in the Hoka Clifton 1. The 2018 version. This is not the original Clifton 1. This is the re-release. Back in July this year, Hoka released the Clifton 5, the 5th iteration of this shoe, and there was a big promotional effort, and they had this big marshmallow theme that they're saying it's marshmallow soft or pillowy soft, and that it's a shoe that everyone's gonna love. I started watching some reviews on it. I watched Jamie's review. He thought it was okay, but it was no Clifton 1. I watched Believe the Run's review on it. He thought it was okay, but it was no Clifton 1. And so that got me thinking back in July, if everyone just wants the Clifton 1, why doesn't Hoka just re-release the Clifton 1? And so fast forward to October, not that they listened to me, or I'm sure lots of people were telling them the exact same thing. Fast forward to October 19th, I saw a tweet, because I do follow Hoka on Twitter, that they had re-released the Clifton 1 2018, and it was now available for sale. I bought it right away. It took 6 days to get to my house, but here they are. This is the Hoka Clifton 1 2018. This is the first Hoka that I've ever run in, and I've got a lot to say. I've been thinking about how to collect my thoughts. The run that you just watched is actually from last Saturday, but I intentionally delayed it a little bit just to kind of make sure that I gave this review, or at least this first impressions, because I've only run in the shoe one time, the right level of thoughtfulness, because I know there's a lot of you guys that are out there that absolutely love Hokas, that have been recommending them to me for a long time, and I finally got into them now, and I'm going to cut to it. I'm not in love with this shoe. It had a high bar with how much hype that it got, with how much enthusiasm with which people have been recommending this to me. I was expecting something magnificent, and it was good, but I'm not sure that it was magnificent. And ultimately, I'm not sure why everyone loves this shoe so much. I'll talk about some things on the outside. Like, the most obvious thing that's weird to me is, like, this shoe is not pretty. It is a weird looking shoe. It is a giant shoe. Yes, it's very light, but as light as it is, it still feels heavy because it's so big. When I was running with it and I had it on my feet, it just looked a little bit unusual. It was giant. And one of my big issues with it, like visually, and it's maybe more than just visually, is that when I put this on my foot, I had to tighten everything up so that way, like, the two sides of the upper were basically touching. And that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. And I feel like a construction problem is if the shoe, to fit someone who's a standard size 9, has to be tightened so much that the two sides are like touching, the shoe has not been made correctly. And so, like, there was just a lot of extra lace. Everything was bunched up. It just seemed weird in terms of how it fit. And I know there's a lot of room in the toe box, and there's supposed to be, but I just felt like the shoes weren't on correctly. And even though I had them tied to the point where these were kind of like touching each other, I still felt like I didn't get a good fit in there. So, like, it was a very different feel than what I'm used to. But I tried to put that aside and say, okay, this is what they're supposed to feel like. Don't worry about what it looks like. I just tried to pretend that this was some weird new Nike recovery shoe or something along those lines that I was really excited about, and let's think about them that way. Here's some other things, and I have an array of other shoes that I'm going to use as visual aids today. I've got them all lined up here. But the first things, before I even got out and started running, when I first put the shoes on, that I thought were really interesting is the tongue on this. It's hard to see because the laces and everything are blocking it out. But the tongue on this shoe is really thin, extremely thin. There's no padding in it. It's just this kind of breathable mesh material on the bottom, and almost like a canvas, very soft canvasy type, or maybe even like it feels like suede a little bit, piece on the top that the laces get laced through to keep it from flopping around too much. But it's extremely thin, and it has what I think they call it the Meta Rocker. It's a 4mm drop shoe, so a little bit different than what I'm used to, but it has what they call the Meta Rocker that helps you, they say, in the toe off, but it reminds me of another shoe that I run in that has a drop off when you get to the toe. And so like once you are walking in them or even running in them, it feels like a shoe, it feels like a normal shoe, and then all of a sudden it kind of drops off like as if you were standing at the edge of a stair and trying to walk off of it. And so in a lot of ways, initially it reminded me of this shoe. The upper kind of has a V-notch cut into it, extremely thin, almost no material to it, zero padding, a very soft, supple material out there. And once you get to a certain point in your stride on this shoe, it just drops off. So I was thinking, is this going to be like a much more cushioned version of this? And so I started running, and instantly I noticed the 4mm drop. I did appreciate that there's a little bit curve up on the back of the heel here, so that makes it so even at slower paces when you're going through more of your foot's motion as you strike, everything felt really comfy. But as I started running in it, I was expecting something more like this, which is the most comfortable thing I've ever put on my feet, which is an OOFOS recovery sandal. I got this sent to me from OOFOS in preparation for the 2017 Chicago Marathon, and it's well worn. I think I'm about to break through to the other side of it. That's how much I've been wearing these. But these sandals are super comfortable, and I was thinking that this shoe would be like a running version of this. But that's not what I got. Instead, what I got was more like this, which is the Saucony Ride ISO that I ran in earlier this year, which I liked because I really enjoyed the Saucony Ride 10. I had the GTX version, but I like this a little bit less than the Ride 10. This seemed a little bit more boxy, a little bit less quick, and a little bit heavier. And this is certainly a much heavier shoe than the Clifton 1 2018, but there's a lot of similarities between these two shoes. They both have really wide platforms or outsole patterns, and so a lot of times as my foot would strike the ground, I would feel like my foot normally comes in a little bit like this, and then as I strike the ground, it slaps down. I felt like the width of these shoes made it so that way as my foot hits the ground, it makes that kind of transition from lateral to medial a little bit less impactful. So it smoothed that out a little bit. So I got that on both of these shoes. And then I definitely felt like the impact would spread out through the shoe, and then I had a little bit more stability as I was pushing off. Not that I necessarily like or want stability, but that's what I was getting. And this shoe is a shoe that I've been going to quite a bit for a lot of recovery runs and longer, slower runs. So when I got into this shoe, the two shoes reminded me of each other, and I was a little bit disappointed in that because this was a shoe that I was hoping that I would really love, but I just liked it a lot. I just didn't love it. Here's where there's some differences between these two shoes though. This shoe, you kind of get what you're gonna get, and then as your run gets longer, it gets less and less comfortable over time. With this shoe, it was okay. And granted, I ran with this shoe straight out of the box. So if there's break-in required, and I'm sure that there is, I haven't probably seen it yet, but here's what I got on the first run. The first 4 miles, this was just an okay shoe. For the price, $130, it was okay. Then from miles 4 through like miles 12 and a half, this shoe all of a sudden felt a lot nicer. And so it was like a gear had changed, and like the level of cushioning kind of like boosted, to borrow a term. And so it got a lot more comfortable, and I was really enjoying this shoe after miles 4, and from miles 4 through about miles 12 and a half. And then as I got towards the end of my run, within like the last mile, my feet they weren't uncomfortable, they weren't in pain by any means, but the miles of running a half marathon on the road were starting to add up, and I was starting to feel just foot fatigue, which is not unusual, but not something that I was expecting from something that looks like this, that seems to be over-engineered like this, and that has such kind of a pedigree attached to it. And so I remember the following day, Sunday, and And even that day, Saturday after my half marathon run, we went to a Halloween party with the girls to my running buddy's house. They have a Halloween party every year. So we went there. We were chasing the kids around, hanging out. It was a party with lots of adults, lots of kids. And all day, it felt like I had run a half marathon in the morning. And yes, I did run a half marathon in the morning, but my feet were feeling it. And that's not something that I've been that accustomed to lately. And then even getting into a Sunday, the following day, I was thinking to myself that my feet hurt more after running a half marathon in these than my feet hurt running a marathon in the Vaporfly 4%. And that's not a fair comparison, I don't think. One, the Vaporflies are $250. These are $130, and they're different shoes for different things. But I just didn't really see. I'm not sure why people love this shoe. I'm trying to see it. I'm trying to look past all of this. But I'm not sure. I think in all fairness, I need to give it a little bit more time and a lot more mileage. So I'll be running these a little bit more after the Indianapolis Marathon this weekend. And I'll let you guys know kind of how I feel about it. Yeah, it's an interesting shoe. The last thing I want to cover today before I go is our charity runners for the day. I did have a charity runner for yesterday's video, but I didn't talk about it yesterday because it was the costume Halloween video. Yesterday's charity runner was Daryl Kelly. Daryl is running for St. Jude, and he's going to be running the Memphis Half Marathon. St. Jude is a pretty awesome charity organization that makes sure that sick kids and their families can get treatment and lots of other support that they need without having to worry about having to pay for it. So go check him out. His links were up yesterday. I'll put his links in today's video as well. And today's charity runner is Adam Pathia. He's Pathia_runs on Instagram, and he's going to be running the Pittsburgh Marathon in 2019, and he's running for the Humane Animal Rescue Paws Over Pittsburgh team. And so go and check out his fundraising page as well. I'll put the links to both of those runners in the feed. What I want to do here on the channel is every day I want to spotlight a different charity runner and give each of them $5 for the day or more if the minimum for whatever their fundraising page is more than that, and hopefully spotlight all of your fundraising efforts and give you guys a little bit of a bump too. Hopefully other people will consider looking at those links and checking out different people's fundraising efforts. If you are a charity runner or if you know a charity runner, send their information to me on Instagram, Twitter, leave it in the comment. I'd love to spotlight you as well. If nothing else, you'll at least get a $5 from me, and hopefully what we can do is work together and showcase all of the great work that you guys are doing. Not only are you getting out there and putting in the miles, you're also raising money for charity, and I think that's awesome. That's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Yo, what's going on?